My name is Lori Reese. I'm a former threat assessment specialist. I worked in the criminal justice system for 28 years. As Darlie Routier is in the news again, I thought it might be interesting for people to go over the 911 statement again. Analyzing 911 statements is not a new thing, contrary to what some people think these days. It's not even that controversial. The statement itself is evidence. Opinion about the statement is not, unless it's an expert opinion, and then the judge has to give whatever weight he or she deems appropriate to that opinion. And opinions have to be backed up by facts and science. There's some wacky assertions out there about what things mean that aren't backed up by science, and there's a lot out there that is backed up by science. The other thing you should keep in mind is that when somebody calls 911, that 911 operator doesn't have a baseline for this person's previous behavior. They have to assume, and we assume going into any kind of analysis like this, that the person is calling 911 because they need help. So we don't start from a position of suspicion, we start from a position of curiosity. By the way, if you like this video and would like to see more of this kind of content, please hit the like button so that I know. It's pretty weird sitting here talking to a camera not knowing if this is what people want. So let's get started.
911, what is your emergency? Ma'am? What?
Somebody came here. Who? They broke in. They, so is this plural or is this a collective they? They just stabbed me and my children. Again, the they, not a man, just stabbed me first and my children. There's an order of priorities issue here that raises a flag. It doesn't mean she's guilty of anything. It just makes you question. It just twigs your brain to watch for that sort of thing. Listen, if you're going to call 911, get to the point. The 911 operator has to figure out who to send, how many, what kind of an emergency it is, and what priority to make it. So if you're the 911 operator, you're hearing somebody came here. Okay? They broke in. Oh, is it a break-in? Oh, they just stabbed me and my children. Oh, wow, that changes everything. When the 911 operator says, who did? She doesn't answer. So notice this. When the 911 operator asks her for information, or when it seems like she's going to have to answer for anything, listen to what she does. You're going to hear a lot of, oh my God, my babies are dying, a lot of screaming. And at the beginning of the call, I didn't think a lot of it, but when it keeps happening and there's that pattern to it, well, then it may change your mind about what she's really doing, whether or not it's a tactic to avoid actually giving specific information, a show, what's going on there. So listen for that as we go through.
Who did?
So she didn't answer the operator's question. She doesn't ask for an ambulance. In all fairness, she's traumatized. She's scared. It's 911. She said the babies were stabbed. So maybe she assumes that that operator is going to know. She says, my little boy is dying. That just tugs at your heartstrings, doesn't it? She refers to one boy, my little boy. So that makes me question what's going on with the other one. Is he alive? Is he dead? Is he fine? My little boy, singular, is dying. And again, notice the histrionics when she's asked to give information. I know people react differently. I've been to lots of scenes where people have reacted completely differently. Some people absolutely shut down. Some people run around in circles and scream and yell and cry. Some people shut down emotionally and they'll give you just the facts, and it almost seems like they're not feeling, but that's their way of coping.
Hang on. Hang on, ma'am. Ma'am? No medical emergency, 5801 Eagle Drive. Ma'am, I'm trying to get an ambulance to you. Hang on a minute. Oh my God, my babies are dying. What's going on, ma'am? Oh my God. I didn't even know. 901, I know medical emergency, 580.
She said she thought he was dead. So first she thought one of her boys was dying. She said her little boy is dying. Then it was plural, her babies were dying. Then it was singular because she thought the one was already dead. And it sounds to me like Darren checked on Damon. Darren is asking for something. And she says, I don't even know. That I don't like that even. And I can't really say anything conclusive about it because we don't have the whole context of what they were saying back and forth. So at this point, we know Darren is in the room. That makes me ask questions though. At what point did he enter the room? Was it just at this point? Was he there before and we just didn't know that? Who made the decision to call 911? Did he come down and say, call 911? Did she call on her own and then he came down later? I think it's important to know exactly when he came down. Now that might be in the subsequent court transcripts. But if I was just looking at this 911 call alone, that's a question I would be asking. The other thing that is interesting is he said he woke up to the sound of breaking glass and went downstairs. What was the glass that broke? And when, in the timeline of this attack, when did that happen? And it sounds like a dumb question, but it's important because if there's a double homicide, an assault, a fight, and a chase, well, at what point is he hearing noise? At what point did the glass break? How long does it take him to get down the stairs? And what did he see when he got there? It seems to me that it's strange to me that breaking glass would wake him up, but she's fighting with an assailant who's just murdered her children. And by her behavior on the phone with 911, she's yelling and wailing and oh my God, I would imagine that during this assault and chase, that she would be screaming bloody murder, that she would be yelling. So did she not yell? Did he not hear it? This isn't hanging together for me, and so I would be asking questions about that. It may be that the questions are already answered, but like I said, I'm only looking at the 911 call.
Drive by 238, Paul Street, Linda Vista, and Willowbrook. Attention 901, medical emergency. Maybe possible stabbing, 5801, Eagle Drive by 238, Paul Street, Linda Vista, and Willowbrook. Coming out 232. Oh my God! These units going forward 6801, Eagle Drive.
Who is breathing? That's what she's asking. Who is breathing? Well, hang on. Does she not know? So she didn't know which of her children was dead or alive? Was she not checking on them? One would assume that, maybe he would look after one and she would look after the other, but she's having to ask who's breathing. So that strikes me as odd. I would be asking questions about that. Then she asks, are they still laying there? Is she talking about the boys or is she talking about something else? I'd be curious to know that too.
5801 Eagle Drive, the sheriff is on the phone. Says her child has been stabbed. Ma'am?
My baby's dead. So we're back to one, and later you'll hear her flip back and forth. They're dying, they're dead, and she just keeps flipping back and forth. Now you'll hear people talk about acceptance of death being an indicator that somebody is lying, particularly if it's a mother. I don't buy that, but I've not personally seen the science on it. So unless and until I do see that science, I can't comment about that. But this flipping back and forth makes me wonder about something else. Did she practice in her head what she would say to 911? Did she know ahead of time that her boys would be stabbed or dead and she would need to call 911 and put on a show? And she practiced saying, my babies are dead, and she's slipping? That's just a question that comes up in my head. It's just a question. It doesn't mean anything. It's not admissible in court. It's a question and every question will make you start looking under rocks. And it's important to look under all the rocks. She says, I saw them, Darren. Now, if you're the only person in the room with another person, do you call them by their name? Maybe if you're annoyed, maybe if you're trying to convince them of something. And that's what I think she's doing. She's wanting to make sure that he believes her. Isn't that odd? Why would your husband think anything, that you were saying anything but the truth in a situation like that? So is she seeing something from him that is letting her know that he doesn't really believe her 100%? I don't know. There's an indicator that predators use. They will say to a victim, I promise, I'm not going to hurt you. I promise. And the minute they say, I promise, you know you're in trouble. Because what I promise tells you is they know that you're seeing in them that there's something wrong. They know that you're not trusting them. And so they say, I promise. They reassure because they want you to believe them so they can commit their crimes.
Ma'am, I need you to calm down and talk to me. Twice. 5801 Eagle.
She's asking, didn't you get my address? We need help. This is a positive indicator for her. She is explicitly asking for help. Now it's come late, but in those situations, It does feel like things are taking forever, and you'll hear her use the word forever later. You hear that a lot from people who've had to call emergency services, even though the fire truck or the police got there in 3 minutes or 6 minutes. They'll tell you, oh my God, it felt like forever. So that whole forever thing is understandable. She's asking for help. That's great. But then again, she's asserting that her babies are already dead. So I'm kind of wondering what's up with that. If she thinks her babies are dead, then there's no more hurry for an ambulance. So there's something with that, and I think we'll see as we go along. The other thing is that at no time does she say, this is where my babies are stabbed, here's where they're injured, I'm applying pressure, what do I do to make sure to treat these injuries, help me that way. Not once through the whole thing. And I find that odd.
Ma'am, listen to me. I need you to...
There's so much focus at this early stage on who could have done this. Who is the perpetrator? And it's so repetitive that it seems to me that, again, she's trying to convince him, her husband, that we have to look elsewhere for the perpetrator, that she needs to convince everybody to look elsewhere who did it, because it wasn't me. So it just strikes me as strange. I mean, maybe she's strange. But I don't know. This isn't right either. And yeah, I think what she's doing here is trying to take the focus off herself as the perpetrator and have everybody look for somebody else.
Oh my God! Do you take the radio clip? Yeah. Ma'am, I need you to talk to me. Ma'am, I can't understand you. You're going to have to slow down, calm down, and talk to me. What is going on? Somebody came in while I was sleeping. Me and my little boys were sleeping downstairs. Stab my baby. Stab me. I woke up. I was fighting. We ran out to the garage. Threw the knife down. My babies are dying. They're dead. Oh my God.
Somebody, aliens, somebody. She's putting forth an alibi. She says she's just sleeping. She was sleeping. And this is from the FBI's Law Enforcement Bulletin. And this was just in January of this year, where they studied this and looked at other studies as well. I'm going to read it to you. It says, the researchers explored the frequency with which callers told the 911 dispatcher of their own location prior to discovering the dead body. The idea here is that homicide callers could misdirect the investigation and minimize their involvement by giving themselves an alibi. Sharing this information proved slightly more common with involved callers. 52% of the homicide offenders told the dispatcher about their own location prior to the incident, as compared with only 36% of callers who were not involved in the death. It further goes on the next page. If a caller provides information about their own location prior to finding the dead body, research across studies supports the likelihood that they are trying to minimize their involvement in the crime. She says, I was fighting. And that's an odd way to say that. You would say, I fought. He ran. The babies are dying again and they're dead again. And then, oh my God. And notice every time she is expected to actually give any details, her babies are dying, or they've come back to or they're dead, or they're come back to life, and she's emotional and she gets high pitched, and I am starting to think that oh my God is actually code for please don't ask me any questions. There's another bit from this law enforcement bulletin, and it says, sorry about the paper rustling. In a summary of all studies conducted on nonverbal behaviors, researchers found that changing one's voice to a higher pitch was more common among those who were being dishonest. Higher pitch proved even more prevalent among liars who did not have time to prepare, as would be expected among those who call 911. So listen for that in the oh my God, and every time she's asked a question or has to give details, how the details just sort of disappear. It's some man and I was fighting and he ran. The other thing she does is she says that she was asleep with her little boys. In the context of a situation where you're terrified or you're in grief, it's pretty normal for a mother to say, my little boys or my babies. My son is an adult and he's still my baby. He's always going to be my baby. So that reference to my babies doesn't really bother me. What's getting me though is the context. So in the context of the ordinary, so outside of grief or fear, we watched TV, we laid on the couch and went to sleep. You would say my boys, my kids, my children. The little boys it kind of draws you in. It's an emotional word. And I'm really starting to think that this person uses emotion as a way to get what she wants. She uses emotion as a way to escape things she doesn't like. She uses emotion to draw people in. So that's just my opinion. But listen as we go through and let me know if you think the same.
On the phone with him. Oh my God! Just that one. Hold on, honey. Hold on. Hold on. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, ma'am.
So she's talking to her son, Devin, I believe. Hold on, honey. And that just tugs at your heartstrings too. But her babies were dead, so I guess they must be alive again because she's talking to them again. And remember that Darren is there. And I can't help but wonder what impact his presence has or had on her behavior and on her responses, and how different it might have been had he not been in the room, had he not found that Damon was, hey, he's still breathing. So it makes me ask those questions. And then we're back to the oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what a show.
Is there with you? Ma'am. What? Is there anybody in the house besides you and your children? My husband, he just went upstairs. He's helping me, but he's dead. Oh my God, he's dead. Okay. Okay. How many little boys? Is it 2 boys? 2 of them. Oh my God. I was
she's back to pointing in another direction to look for the perpetrator. Also, she says she thinks she's dying. She did get stabbed in the neck, and it was serious enough that she had to go to hospital. And, you could see how, if in the course of stabbing a child who's beneath her, um, how she might slip and cut her own throat. I don't know. But I'm not going to get into all the details around that, but it's just odd. And it's also really common, by the way, for assailants who use knives to cut themselves during the attack. I don't make anything of the fact that she says that she feels bad and she thinks she's dying. I mean, it might be more drama. In a situation like that, you can't assume it's drama. You have to take that seriously in the situation. And, she has not been talking about her injuries all along up until this point. She hasn't been complaining about herself. She's been pretty focused on the babies, and somebody came in here and I was sleeping, and who is it? So she hasn't been real focused on her own injuries.
Eagle Drive, 5801 Eagle Drive, going to be a stabbing. When are they going to be here? Ma'am, they're on their way. Oh my God.
She asks 3 times, when are they coming? It sounds reasonable and normal in the circumstances until her next utterance, which is, you can barely hear it. It's under her breath. And that really changed my mind, as if there wasn't enough already in this call. She mutters, I gotta just sit here forever. I gotta just sit here forever. This is not about her babies at all. This makes me think that what she wants is for this part of this situation, or this part of the movie, to be over with. Her stress has built up. It has probably not gone the way she thought. She wants to hit fast forward on the movie and get past this part, because it's too stressful and she keeps slipping off script. Now, that's my opinion. That's the thought that came in my head when I was listening to that. That doesn't mean anything, and I could never say something like that in court. That's not evidence, but that's what I'm thinking, and I'll let you make up your own mind. Also, just sit here. Wait a minute, is that what she's been doing? Just sitting there all this time? Is she not helping her babies? Go back to when she was asking Darren who's breathing, because she didn't know. So I wonder about that.
Ma'am, how old are your boys? What? How old are your boys? No. Okay. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh shit! Calm down, can you?
Again, with the who would do this? Somebody else, not me. Is anyone counting how many times she said this?
Is your name Darlie? Yes, ma'am. Your husband's name Dan? Yes, please. God, they're taking forever. There's nobody in your head. You don't know who did this?
This one's interesting because she corrected the pronouns. She's still not being specific about who this could be. She said he ran out. Then she corrected herself and said they ran out. And again, she puts forth her alibi. I was sleeping. Remember what I told you about the studies and people telling where they were before the homicide.
There's a knife. Don't touch anything.
She says, my babies are over there already cut. That is a strange way of saying that. We also don't hear everything, so maybe there's a rational reason for that, but it just strikes me as strange. And if I was looking at the file, I'd be searching for that information, and if I was an investigator, I might be really twigging in on that. Darren also says the phone is right there. So it just makes me wonder what's this conversation that's happening between the two of them in this horrendous moment. Then she says, look in the garage, they left a knife. In another part, she says the guy, or they threw the knife down, which is very different than leaving a knife. And the language does matter. If either way though, if this person who killed these children and stabbed her is now trying to escape, why would he throw a knife down so that she could pick it up and get him with it? I mean, you don't want to mess with a mom. You don't kill some mother's babies or harm her babies and expect that she's not going to come after you. You're not going to be dropping a knife or throwing a knife or leaving a knife somewhere. So that's just strange. And it makes me question everything around, okay, so how do you know he threw the knife down or left it there? So you were, what? Because you were chasing him? Well, what happened just before that? How did you get away? And why is it, if he's willing to murder two little kids, that why is it he would leave a witness? Why is he running? Right? He's already cut her throat, allegedly. Why not finish the job? It just seems strange to me. And the other thing that's strange is they found a sock 2 doors down, and it had some spots of blood on it, and it's one of the things that they're going to re-examine for DNA now after the last appeal. I think it was September, and why would you leave the knife and take a sock? This offender has got to be the most disorganized ghost offender ever. I mean, he cut the screen with a knife that was inside the house, and somehow, and he doesn't, he uses a kitchen knife and then he leaves it for her. He doesn't get rid of the witnesses. He kills the kids first, which when it comes to offender behavior, that makes no sense at all. Not even a little bit. So the whole thing does not add up. Just what she's saying, just in the call. And then if you put it in context with everything else and what they actually find, which is how they use the 911 calls, they compare, what they find to what the person had said. It just raises more and more questions. And she says, I picked it up. Well, isn't that convenient? Because now her fingerprints are on it, and that explains her fingerprints. She's giving, again, misdirecting. Who did it? Some ghost perpetrator, not me. Somebody, right? We don't know. And she was sleeping, right? I couldn't have done it. I was sleeping. It's not my fault. And I picked it up now, sorry, my fingerprints are on it. I'd want to know what, when she picked it up, why she picked it up. I want to know what she did with it. I understand that it was found in the kitchen, but, and you'll hear it, she says, oh, look in the garage, there's a knife. They dropped a knife in there. So how did it get from the garage to the kitchen? So things just, even from the get-go, are not adding up. There's a whole host of questions just in this little section of the call that investigators would want to dig into, a whole host of things that don't make sense.
Who's out there? Anybody out there? I don't know. Hey, ma'am, listen. There's a police officer at your front door. Is your front door unlocked? Yes, ma'am. It's with the ambulance. Okay. It's barely breathing. If I don't get in here, this is bad. My God, this is bad. Hurry, please. Okay, there's 82 out on Eagle. Huh? That Eagle. Eagle, my God, hurry.
Is your front door unlocked? Yes. What? If somebody just murdered your children and tried to murder you, and you run out, chasing them and they're gone, you're not going to lock your door at that point? You're not going to be afraid he's going to come back and finish the job? Even victims or survivors who have, are 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years out from the commission of the actual crime against them, they're still afraid. What if the guy comes back? That's a really common question. They're afraid. Victims will stay put for hours and hours and hours to make sure that guy is gone before they seek help, because they're so terrified he's going to come back. It makes no sense to me that the first thing that she would do is leave that front door unlocked. That doesn't make any sense.
82, you out? Oh my God. Oh my God. Why would they do this? What do you say? Why would they do this? Okay, listen, ma'am. You need to let the officers in the front door, okay? What? Ma'am? What? You need to let the police officers in the front door. His knife was laying over there, and I already picked it up. Okay, it's all right. It's okay. I got in the purse, baby.
His knife was laying over there, and I picked it up already. It's just laying over there. How to get there? He dropped it. Why'd she pick it up? Same questions I had before. But then she says something really good. She says, God, I bet if we could have gotten the prints, maybe. Oh, so did she think there were prints on the knife? Did the guy not wear gloves? Is that why there are prints? This ghost offender is really disorganized.
Ma'am, hang on a second. Somebody walked in here and did it, Darren.
Darren, I promise. Remember what I said earlier? When somebody looks at you and says, I promise, they're telling you that they're mirroring back something to you. And what that is they see that you're not believing it. Why is he not believing it? Why is she trying to convince him? And I promise is a lie. And then she did it. She says it again. She says somebody who did it intentionally walked in here. They walked in and did it. Did it. So somebody walked in here intentionally and did it. Darren. So again, she's using his name, and listen to the tone of voice. She's annoyed. And it makes me think, you know, maybe she's real nice and sweet, but just don't make her mad. She really needs him to believe her.
Okay, ma'am.
Now she's saying there's nothing touched, insistently, after she just finished saying she picked up the knife.
Ma'am, is the police officer there? Okay, go talk to him, okay? Yes, that's okay. Go talk to him, though. Okay?
In conclusion, this 911 call raises a lot of questions. And I'm sure that prosecutors and investigators have asked those questions. And defense lawyers will ask those questions. And you can take a set of facts, same set of facts, and argue them two different ways or more. It's up to the courts to decide whether or not she's guilty. Currently, she is convicted. She is appealing. And so we'll see. It's not up to people on YouTube to make that determination. This was just for your information and for something to think about. And hopefully some of the analysis can help you in your own life as you examine what people say and how they behave. If you like this, let me know. And if you want to see more of this, let me know. Otherwise, I probably won't do it because it's a lot of work. And thank you for watching.